This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
I'm going to call the September 23rd Public Safety Building meeting to order. Public Safety Committee meeting to order. And open time for the public. Stephen, we have you as a guest again. Would you like to say something?
Hello.
All right. Anything more?
At your service.
Thank you.
I found it.
Then we'll review the August 5th minutes. I don't have a copy of them. I did read them. Time ago. Chief, you usually have a copy of them. Did you
I
print
have
them
a
out?
copy of one.
Charlie always has a printed out copy of
July
every
8th.
document. Shall we just pat, Charlie, did you have the opportunity to read them?
The minutes, yeah.
Okay. And I have two.
Want me
Should
to
I
read them
pass
real
them?
quick?
Well, unless
You-
everybody has read them already and we can just go ahead and approve them. Mark, you've read them, or do you need them?
Oh, yeah, 192. Okay. 192 out of 444.
Can you read it?
Yeah, I can.
You were not there that day, so.
I think that came
You
in
have
late,
cows?
because Mark was
Both
absent.
of you, did you, so that's a correction?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so,
Came late.
right, so,
The only
My
amendment,
chief Freiburg Fair.
I was present, but I got there late.
right, so,
You didn't get-
let's see, that needs to be, sent over to, Mark for an adjustment, so.
Did you see them?
Yes, the property is closed.
Okay. Any, so there's
Is that yours?
one amendment here. As far as attendance goes, any other, anything else that needs to be changed? All right, may I have a motion to accept the minutes
Make a motion.
as amended? Second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, Scott, will you give us a land acquisition update, please?
So some of you may have heard that we received a gift of $1 million from the Boyle family. So we are in the middle of transferring that to town funds right now. We hope to close by the end of this week. And we'll have, Steve says on the record. So we have to close by a week from today anyways, for the purchase and sale. So we're slowly coming on it, but it should be in a couple days.
That the closing will take place, you said by the end of the week? Can you, or do you want us, I should mention Chris's attendance here, shouldn't I?
Oh, yes.
Any vote would have to be roll call.
Right, so we didn't do that with the minutes.
Correct.
Do we need to do that? Hello, can we have Chris, or?
Chris, she's audio, I think.
Hi, Chris. I can hear you.
Okay, welcome, how are you feeling?
Yeah, little groggy, but I'm
Yeah,
here.
Okay, well, take it easy. But we're glad you're here. So should we backtrack a little and redo the minutes as a roll call?
Just go ahead, guys. Go ahead.
Thank
That's
you.
fine.
Okay. So, Scott, can you give us, do you want to give some people as much information or a little information about the gift? Or just say that it's a gift?
It was, yeah, really it's just a gift from the Boyle family. You know, just wanted to give back to the town as a whole. He obviously is supportive of the public safety complex, so, but other than that, he's just wanted it to be a gift to the town.
And a former owner of the property.
That's right.
So he owned the property before the Wings did.
So I just want to go on record for personally saying thank you, because we are
Yes.
being taped, and it's an immensely generous gift.
Hugely. So we are very, very grateful.
Yeah. Chris, if I can add one thing?
Yes, please.
Yeah, just to say that the Boyle family approached us, and so that too was great. And it's not, it goes back to the parents, actually, of the current generation. And these are folks that my folks knew growing up, so they have owned the land. They had owned the land back in the 1940s, I believe. So it's kind of interesting that this has kind of come full circle, and the new generations are willing to make this available to the town, but expressly for the purpose of reducing the tax burden on the residents. So the idea was to not have us borrow more than 1.2 million. That was the request of the donor.
And it is
So an incredibly generous donation, and again, multi thanks from the select board, as well as I'm sure many of the town residents once they hear about it.
And will it be publicized?
Yes and no. They do not want a press release. They were, pretty low key about it. So to the extent we get asked about it, we'll make it known. But I don't know, Scott, unless you've had more recent information.
Nope, that's it. We're just gonna go by their wishes, and there's not gonna be a big media article or anything like that. They just want to have it for the town.
But will the town be formally or has the town formally thank them, or should this committee formally thank them with?
Yeah. So they
note?
accepted it last Tuesday evening. The select board accepted the gift, so for our new gift policy, we'll send them a formal thank you letter. But
Yeah.
certainly, we'd be more than happy to send additional thanks on behalf of the committee as well.
Yeah.
I think that would be in order. Does the committee agree, and do we need to vote on that? Is that a votable motion?
Well, in case it is, I move that the committee formally thank the Boyles in the same letter, I guess, that the town is going to say thank you. Does that make sense?
I can do another letter too. For
Another letter? Okay.
Yeah.
2 letters is better than 1.
I think the committee could send another letter, actually.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So Cindy has made that motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor, and we'll do a roll call. Chris, we'd like to start with you.
Okay, Fowles, aye.
Illingsworth, aye.
Palmer, aye.
Searle, aye.
Green, aye.
Mark?
Vecchino, aye.
Fasoli, aye.
Kaneki, aye.
Mattson, aye. Unanimous. Well, it is a marvelous thing, and we are very grateful. All taxpayers are very, very lucky. It's a lucky thing.
So are you borrowing the remaining 1.2?
Yes, eventually this year we will.
Okay.
Yep. So
You'll take it out.
come in a little bit.
You'll take it out of funds.
Yeah.
Thank you, Scott.
Actually, on the 1.2, we're actually gonna, originally we were gonna borrow 1.1, just to kind of go off track a little bit. The Senior Center Building Committee, we discussed with them, instead of using the $100,000 towards the land use plan, the land purchase, we're actually gonna be using that $100,000 to fund a land use planner that we discussed before. So Stephen's been really great, and we've had a few quotes come in. We've met with a few vendors already, with potentially going forward with that route. But now we have the funding, so we should be able to move forward with actually hiring someone to do the land use planning part.
Great, that's fabulous. And so, thus you are reverting, or going to borrow the 1.2 rather than the 1.1.
Right.
That works out very nicely, doesn't it? All right, ready to move on then, Scott? Okay. So, subcommittee, we want the report on the reduction of the footprint. You've made progress. It was just 3 of you that met, Scott, Chief Fasoli, and Chief Illingsworth.
Yes, and I did reach out to John O'Shea and sent him our reductions and just asked him for some input. And, he responded with a message, something to the effect of, if I remember correctly, it was something to the effect of, so long as, you guys can live with it. And the police and fire chiefs, it looks good to him. So that's what he indicated when he reviewed it.
Great. So you will review it and then
So, sure. I can enlarge this a little bit if anybody needs me to. I wish I had a mouse, but. So we'll start with the fire department on the fire department side here. So, Chief, you want to explain your reductions?
Basically, eliminate one bay, and that lower left room there, communication, we're eliminating that room. Originally in the questionnaire we filled out, it was gonna be for radio maintenance, portable radios, and we don't really need a whole room for that.
Just for a matter of reference, where there's a red X, that's what's eliminated, and where you see the little bubbles, that's where usually it's been reduced. But there's a message in the bubbles when we get to it.
Right.
show a bubble, please.
Sure. So this right here would be a bubble. So that room, for instance, would be reduced.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Right, so moving over towards the right, you can see the conference room kind of at the top of that hallway with the X in it. That was going to be eliminated with the idea of, the chief's office could be reduced, and we could also, there would still be enough room in there for a small conference table, something similar to the EOC center and the police station, just a 6-seat table. And then that small kitchenette area removed. We don't really need that. The offices for EMS captain, fire prevention, again, that was part of that questionnaire where they were saying, where do you see the department in 30 or 40 years? Well, with the expansion, they possibly could, need their own offices, but present day, we don't need those. We were also talking about the 2 bathrooms there, either eliminating them or moving them to a different section of the hallway where we wouldn't need that tiny little hallway right there, the white section. And same with farther down the hallway, the corridor going into the exercise room. If they were to rearrange that locker room, we could just walk right through into the fitness room. The bunk rooms down the bottom, all the purple circles, we could probably get away with making those smaller and eliminating 1. We wouldn't need 5. This is again the present time. That was about it.
A shower right there, right?
Right, we don't need 3 showers in the locker room. Moving on to the EOC, we were thinking that we don't need a separate office for EOC in the training room. You can see how we got the purple circles in there for downsizing the training room and fitness room and eliminating the EOC office.
And the EOC would be shared with the radios.
Right.
Right.
Communication room.
Yep.
So.
And the fitness is going to be reduced space as well. The server, we thought, was, based on their estimate, that seemed like a lot of space for IT infrastructure.
So.
Moving into the police department, we'll start with we'll start over to the far left here, reduced by 15 lockers. And what should be considered here is, by this reduction, and when you look at this final report, the corridor space amounts to a lot of net space. And so we're hoping that when we eliminate these rooms, we're going to also be eliminating a lot of corridor space, or it could be redesigned to eliminate a lot of corridor space. And that's what we're hoping for with the new program format. if HKT could move some stuff around, reduce the corridor space with the elimination of some of these rooms and the reduction of the rooms.
I think because the L shape was really due to the space that was available in the 4 or 5 acres originally. Now that with the whole 52 acres, they have a little bit more flexibility to make the design a little bit more efficient.
Right. And what I noted in the report, and if I read this correctly in the final report, that the circulation area to include that corridor space factors about 25% of the net space footage.
Wow.
That's a lot of
That's a
footage.
lot, yeah.
So we're hoping that that will work. So reduce the men's lockers. We don't need 2 janitors' closets for one building. We can have 1. Reduce the women's lockers by 4 lockers. We can eliminate the tech lab. We could use that could be included with the processing lab. Medical supply, eliminate that. And as we move up, the training officer, again, this was projected. This was projected, 25, 30 years out, so we're not gonna have a room for a training officer, not necessary. The detective, we're not gonna have that many detectives, so all we need is 1 room for detectives, even if we have 2, but 1 should be sufficient with our size town. Even projecting out as far as we need to, at least another 10 years. I hope doesn't get that busy in town. Future captain, we eliminated that. As we proceed up, again, this is that shared space with the EOC and our radios for fire and police can be in there. For instance, our communications could be in the EOC, which is practical during a significant event. The conference room, this would be a shared space between the PD and the FD. And, you know what, this isn't indicated, but that chief's office could be reduced as well. And that is what we found for reductions. What we estimated for reductions and eliminated rooms was about 3,700 square feet. But that does not include the corridor space, the net space that we'll lose from the reprogramming, and hopefully eliminate a lot of this white shared circulation area. And we're hoping that that would be a significant cost reduction. The fire chief obviously chose to eliminate a bay, but we obviously want to make sure that there's room to add on in case there's another bay. So it would be the outward bay, but that's like a condition of the removal of that bay is as time goes on and the fire department expands, they'll have the opportunity to expand into another bay.
I don't understand that. Does that mean the space will still be there, but it won't be designated?
No,
as a bay?
no, it'll only be
Oh.
3 bays. There's 4 bays, there'll
Yeah.
only be 3 bays.
How can
Pushing
you-
that wall over.
Yes, exactly. Yep, that 1 bay will be gone,
Oh, how can you expand in the future then?
because it'll be on the outside of the building, so they
Oh,
can
I
add
see.
a bay to the outside.
I see.
Right.
The final design's gonna look much different from this.
Right.
So it's really, they're starting from scratch.
And that 1 bay is about 1,360 square feet. So the,
If I'm understanding you, you're reducing this by about 40%?
no, not even close. This is a 29,000 square foot building.
26.
27 actually.
Right.
After the reductions, it's, according to the final report, they said 29,000.
Well, but then later on, they never did add, that was one thing I wanted to bring up with the final report. They never,
26,161 was the
Okay.
total. So it was 25.5 for the main floor, and then another 650 for that mezzanine section there, because there's enough room to put a second floor in that little piece.
The,
I'm not sure if this is right, but that's about a 5.2% reduction. Does that sound right?
yes. So if it was 1,200 square feet, it would be about $4,500,000 reduction. That's not including that circulation space.
How many dollars did you say reduction?
You know, if it was $4,440,000.
Oh, okay.
But that does not include
The corridors.
all the circulation space that should be, I believe, you know, could be eliminated by a redesign with the reduced square footage, and even because we had a certain area certain way it had to be developed, that shared space could be placed somewhere else, to include the training and the conference rooms could be placed in an area where we don't have to have separate corridors going to it.
Yeah.
That's what we were thinking of when it came down to even reducing it, the footprint even smaller. Is a lot of that open space, that circulation space as they called it.
I have some questions, but I want to open it up for others first to ask questions. Would anyone like to put forward?
I just wonder if there's more input from when you and Scott met with HKT. What else did HKT say? You just kind of went over ways to reduce it? Is that what?
We didn't meet with HKT. This was just a subcommittee meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. I misunderstood. Okay.
Any questions from the committee? No? Well, may I ask mine then? I'm just gonna question the bay reduction in a chat with the West Hampton Fire Chief. They have 5 double bays in West Hampton.
I was just there Saturday, we did some training. So they have 5 doors in the front.
Right, and 2 in the back.
2 in the back.
Correct.
And so the front, you know, they can fit a truck in each bay. And then the 2 in the center, they have other equipment in behind it.
Correct.
Right.
That is correct, but he just said, he was quite, to me, in our conversation, he said, don't lose storage space. So only two of the bays are drive-through, and
Right.
the other 3 are just double deep, single access bays. Right. He said you'll fill them up. So and that's a tiny town compared to us. And I don't want to build this building too small. So I want to make sure that 3 double bays, we're not immediately going to be wishing for that fourth bay. I think it's for consideration, but I'm leery of undersizing this building. That's just a comment, and that's just one person's opinion.
I think the bays are gonna be long enough where you're gonna be able to have a truck on each door, and then there'll be space in the middle for more equipment.
You know better than I was just going on what
Right.
another fire chief said in a smaller town.
Yeah, and like I said, I was just there Saturday, you know, specifically looking at that stuff.
Okay, yep.
I mean, you know, they have a pickup and they have like a air trailer, which is basically to fill up the air packs, a small trailer, and some other smaller equipment in there, so.
He did tell me that there is some specific equipment that's stored in that 5th bay, and I can't remember. I
Right.
wrote it down, but I don't
Right.
have that.
Because you brought up Williamsburg,
No, I brought up
West Hampton.
oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood again because I noticed they're doing something in Williamsburg. It looks like they're adding something at Williamsburg.
I don't know.
All right, so, off topic, wrong, thanks.
Okay. So then the other thing, Chief, is you mentioned the elimination of the kitchenette. You don't need that. Do you mean you'll be able to jointly use a kitchenette?
Well, I mean,
They have an entire.
we have a full kitchen
Oh,
down there, and the kitchenette, I think, would be basically just, you know, a coffee pot or microwave.
so really redundant.
Right,
Yeah, that seems excessive. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that because I didn't know. Now,
Can you get that? Oh, you got it, sorry.
So,
You mentioned the shared EOC in the communications room, and that's the communications room is small, right?
Right.
And so my question to that is, you did agree that in an emergency, all the operations can take place in
Well,
that
that was
smaller
just
room?
the office,
Okay.
an EOC office, that wasn't
The operations
Right.
room.
Right.
Okay, so that you're very, very confident that
Right.
that
Sure,
reduction,
yes.
because that's a big reduction, right? Taking out the EOC room, isn't that the room that's under the?
That was the EOC room right there, where my cursor is. Right there.
Oh, okay.
That's the EOC, the office for the EOC. And so
Got it.
what we would do is we'd actually put the EOC here with the communications and radios.
Right, okay, all right. It was my mistake in reading that.
And in the EOC, when you have, you know, a command center like that, usually what we'll have, when we have some sort of critical incident in Southampton, we'll have fire, the fire chief, myself, and he's also the EMD, so he serves two purposes there, as well as the highway department. And so you really need maybe 4 or 5 people to fit in that room to run operations. And having the radios in there would allow us to listen to communications as well.
Okay, great. And so, what time frame were you looking at as you considered these reductions? 10 years, 20 years? Because you are planning for the future too. So you're reducing, and you've worked really conscientiously too to figure out what really can go, but you feel quite confident that this is surplus room that will not be needed like within a 30-year time span?
I can't say that, certainly, you know, like, I can't
Yeah,
say
none
that.
of us can.
And I know, the reason I say that is because, yeah, some of this may be needed, but I think our objective in this subcommittee was to try to say, okay, how can we make this size of this building, which would reduce the cost, what can we do to make it work for us where we're not eliminating absolutely necessary things?
Yep.
I can tell you with the police department. So I'm going, I started in 1995, and we have essentially the same amount of officers we did in 1995.
Okay.
Right.
So as you answered your questions in the original programming sessions, you were projecting, they took your information, and you're now pulling back on, you've
Right.
rethought
Right,
some of the things that
yes.
you
Right,
have.
the questionnaire was for, you know, it being a 50-year building, 60-year building.
Right. That's why I knew it was
Right.
for 50 years, but we need to make some provision for some length of time so that we're not immediately needing new space. So after you made these reductions, you have thought about it and feel confident that it is going to be adequate for the town's needs. And again, this is just a question. I
Yeah.
want to make sure we're not.
I can say on the police department, the blue end side and the green, I'm confident.
Great.
Mm.
Okay, great. So now, any other questions?
Scott had some designs of even smaller buildings. I don't know if these guys had a chance to look at those designs and whether they'd be adequate or not.
I did reach out to HKT. I asked if they would be willing to look at some of their previous designs and some of their smaller projects that they did. The response was that each project is unique and they didn't have it in every transfer. I could certainly,
Yeah, no, I know.
you know,
I know you did.
that way, but they wanted to start fresh, so.
But I guess the question, I mean, there have been smaller joint facilities.
Oh, absolutely.
So I just wonder what's different, what might be different, or what we're getting with the additional space, not
Well, I think, the two chiefs took an axe to it.
Yeah.
HKT's gonna have to take the scalpel and a little bit here, a little bit there, that's all gonna add up. I mean, I do think once the redesign is there, the unused space is gonna be a lot more efficient, like the hallways, and that's gonna be a huge thing. The reduction of community room, the fitness center, that's gonna be a significant reduction as well. I think that they just need to redesign it now that they have a blank canvas to, with the concept that it needs to be a smaller,
Yeah.
more affordable area.
Did the subcommittee agree that the meeting room, what is that called? I don't have the right glasses.
It's called the training up there,
Okay.
this room right here.
That it
Yep.
should be moved to the front of the building? Will that be conveyed to HKT?
That and making sure that the expandability in the future is a design feature, because, there might be hallways that go to nowhere, but that's, meant to be added on. Like, you mentioned with the additional bay, they're gonna have to relocate those rooms on the left side in case there ever
Yes,
needs to be a
yes, of
fourth bay
course.
added,
Okay.
so.
So, Scott, would you, unless the chiefs have something more to say, or when they have finished, would you just fill us in on where things stand with HKT?
So I talked to HKT a few different times. I do have an estimate for our redesigning the building. The biggest part of their estimate, which came in at about $55,000, the biggest part was the redesign of the building, and that was about $32,000. That's something that they have control over. The next biggest part was $15,000, which is they use a separate estimator. So there's really not a lot of wiggle room or negotiation up to that point. Those two alone brings you up to about $45,000. The other expenses, the site evaluation, it was only $500 because it's a flat site, so there's no work really to do on that. The assessment of talking to the chiefs, kind of updating everything, was just under $4,000. And the modification to the final report was about $5,000. So really, we're going to discuss with them. We have to find some additional funding. We have about that $30,000 to $33,000 available still in the account from what we budgeted for the initial feasibility study. There's going to be some ARPA money available. We're going to try to find that. We're just waiting for Bradley to kind of finalize a few of the outstanding projects, and hopefully we're going to have enough for that. And then I am going to approach HKT about maybe reducing their design fee a little bit, just because it's not going to be a complicated design. And I think once they see what the chiefs propose and the reductions and the need to make it as cost efficient as possible, I think that they really may have overestimated the amount of time for that.
Please.
Scott, will this be money that may not necessarily require a special town meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully. The idea is to find the funding before town meeting.
Can I ask a stupid question?
No.
Is this still in the feasibility study mode now?
Yes.
Phase 2 of the feasibility study. I would probably say that design's probably phase 1A, this is phase 1B.
I'm just wondering, as a layman, why we're doing this if we're still gonna go out and get an official design. You know,
We need to have a basis to present at the town meeting for the architectural fees, the OPM, that it's actually feasible to have a building that's in budget. Ultimately, when we go out to bid for the OPM as well, you're gonna need something to work off of.
okay. I feel like we don't really wanna reinvent the wheel though either.
I mean, we
Maybe
can,
this will give us a leg up though when that comes.
I think HKT did a pretty good job. They did exactly what they were contracted to do. The other option is going outside of HKT, but that's gonna cost even more money because we're gonna have to start from scratch.
Right.
So they're gonna have to interview everyone again,
Right.
do a completely blank study. They're not gonna know town of Southampton. So I'm hoping to negotiate with them on the price of the $55,000 a little bit, but a good portion of that is kind of outside of their control.
Okay. Thank you.
Wasn't a stupid question at all. I've had I've questioned too, that additional $55,000 just to get us a figure to take to the town. And Scott has convinced me that it's necessary. The other option would be, would another option be for consideration to take what we have to the town and explain that where we are going to cut back, so we won't have, we'll be giving them less concrete information, but in doing so, we'll save $55,000, $1,000. I don't know. I just.
I mean, at that point, we'd be saying, you know, we're gonna be setting a ceiling for what we need as a committee. So we might have to go to the town and say, you know, we're not gonna spend more than 20 million. 10% of that's gonna be $1 million for OPM and design features, and that's it. But it, you know, it could be a little bit less, it could be a little bit more at the end of the day. You know, we may find out that we can't do it for less than 25 million. Or we could do it just as well with 17.5 million, but we won't know until we go through that process and actually have the cost estimator redo it.
Right. So you remain committed to this process, that we need to go through this process, so that.
And it also helps with selling at the town meeting as well, because it's one thing to say, hey, we have this great design, we paid $135,000 for it. We're not gonna use it, we're gonna use this other thing with a big question mark.
Right.
So
it is more concrete.
I think just for the voters, we
town.
would need to do that.
Okay.
I think it shows that we're committed to trying to make this as reasonable as possible, but meeting our needs.
Right.
And,
Right, it does demonstrate that,
Yeah.
but it is another good chunk of money that we're spending.
It is.
I guess I just wish it was less.
Yeah, I do as well.
Well, really, we budgeted, what, 155,000 for the feasibility study, and we only used 130, so it's really only 20,000 over budget.
Yeah.
I think this is the way to go.
Well,
No, I don't like
yes.
spending the money, but I agree, because if you go to town meeting and you say, look at, our first brush with this was too expensive, we regrouped, and we were able to reduce it down to X and show them what that product is, without saying, I don't want to get sarcastic, but trust me, just give me the money. You know?
Right. Yes. Yes, so my hesitation was simply, it's another large chunk of money.
Well,
But as I say,
yeah.
Scott did convince me of the necessity of it. I was just putting it out there.
I want to ask a question back just a little bit. I think we talked about this quite a long time ago. If we need a temporary area for some kind of weather-related crisis, you know, severe 100-year snowstorm, or vice versa, severe heat, that is that built into this, the cooling station of an, you know, temporary?
May I, only because I've done emergency stuff for my career, the last thing you do is bring the general population to your emergency service building.
Oh, so it's not going to be used for any kind of climate crisis emergency?
Because then you hamstring the
Okay.
emergency people to become servants of those individuals and are unable to respond to other areas of the town.
That's why they've transitioned to a lot of shelters into regional shelters now, for that reason.
Okay, thanks. Just had to ask. Okay.
Would it not be likely that the Norris School gymnasium would be used?
It's a matter of staffing. It's staffing and meeting the needs. So if there was a shelter, you have to meet needs of the individuals. You have to make sure they have their medical needs. You have to make sure they have their ADA needs. You have to have security. You have to have food. We don't. Southampton would not be able to sustain that.
But emergency shelters regional shelters are of ample size to support the
Smith Vogue
region.
is our regional shelter. That's when they open up a regional shelter. It's Smith Vogue. It's an actual school. Yes.
And that's staffed. There's a whole protocol in the city of Northampton to staff all that.
That was a regional shelter during the storm, the storm in 2011, October storm.
So with, you're going to return, Scott, to HKT with the reduced footprint and negotiate a price. And then then does this committee have to, well, first of all, do we need to accept this reduction and authorize the moving ahead with HKT, or are we just good to go?
I think a couple meetings ago, didn't the committee folks move forward with HKT?
I thought we did.
Yes.
Okay, so mine is my forgetfulness. All right, so we're all squared away. You'll just proceed, and perhaps by our next meeting, you will have a definitive price and the money to do it, and we'll be moving forward.
I did talk to Janet too, and they say it would probably take anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks just to complete it, so.
Okay.
So that drops us into New Year's with a plan for the following year.
How does it put us as far as time frame goes? You know, they said this, what they've presented is for immediate movement forward. Price is going to keep escalating. So are we still kind of on schedule so that the revised footprint is not going to cost the same amount as our original one?
So once we have the revised estimate, we can schedule probably a special town meeting, which takes, I think it's about 3 weeks to schedule, but 3 to 4 weeks. Once we have the special town meeting, you know, the question on the ballot or question at town meeting would be to fund the architectural study and the OPM. Once you have that, then it takes about maybe 30 to 45 days to get the RFP ready for an OPM. Once we have the OPM, then we'll do the architectural process to get that final design, and then hopefully we would have it by the May annual town meeting.
Who will determine the amount that is requested at special town meeting for the OPM and the design? How will that figure be determined?
You'd probably have to rely on HKT's estimate.
Okay. All right, so anything more on that?
Just a question on how that fits with the timing for the plan for the site.
So hopefully we're going to move forward with the land use planning ASAP. I think it should take, what, 3 months? 2 to 3 months?
I think it depends on who we hire,
Right.
how quickly they get them settled.
So the idea is, you know, we know that there's going to be the lands in use for council on aging and public safety building. So those are the primary objectives with the land use planning. Then there are some question marks, you know, is there going to be new zoning in place? Is there going to be sewer accessibility? Are we looking at affordable housing to potentially, you know, put it into that area? That's going to take a little bit longer, but right now we're just trying to get a basic idea of where those 2 buildings could be. So that would be the priority.
And having sewer or not having sewer is kind of a big deal.
Yes. Yeah. We have a sewer feasibility study that should be completed probably in hopefully another month or 2, and that's going to really make a big determination.
Do we have to get East Hampton's permission to hook into their sewer system? And has that been achieved?
You know, it's a really good question, and we've been advised that we ought to formalize it with a letter of intent. But meeting with the mayor and her meetings with her DPW chief, happens to be a town resident, we have inside track to him, it's all favorable again. They remember better than some of us that this issue has come up before. And they'd love to have more ratepayers, but the business plan has to be worked out, and then that would be embodied in an intermunicipal agreement. And all things going our favor, we would not be building a sewer department. We would be having some number of clients of East Hampton Sewer.
If I may, we already have East Hampton Sewer. It-
Well, I know, some.
And East Hampton ran their sewer line down that greenway all the way to Coleman Road pretty much, anticipating somewhere down the line more connections developing. And if I can, out of class, one of the problems that happened with East Hampton is their mills shut down. So their water flow reduced into their wastewater treatment plant. So they actually have more capacity, if I remember right, on dealing with this, because they're a community that the only growth they're having is the mills being converted into housing. But
And
the
a lot
land
of
use-
land development too, so there's
No,
a,
that land development's pretty much developed in
Done,
East Hampton.
done.
You're not seeing a lot of new buildings in it.
You see the change, but it's not a large percent on the.
right. So it was the town of East Hampton who installed it up to Coleman, and it will be the town of Southampton that bears the burden of getting it. And where does it stop? Where is it proposed to stop? At at 125 College Highway, or come all the way to the center of town? Or behind.
Originally, this was going to be the sewer district, but it's going to be more focused on the Zero College Highway.
Okay, so up to that point, so that will be a town expense, and then the people who tap into it, will be paying the fees. So it's a one-time expenditure that will be covered by increased property
It'd be a
taxes.
monthly payment to them,
Well, not on our part, not-
State and federal dollars if we were able to do some housing related to it.
Right, but what I'm saying is that long-term, once the initial installation of this has taken place, those without access to the sewer system will not be sharing the burden of ongoing.
No, that'd be a betterment tax on the property owners that abut the sewer.
That was my question, okay.
At least
Okay,
That's the way
But-
it theoretically works.
Just for
It would be
sake
like
of
enterprise fund.
clarity with this conversation, that won't have any bearing on a public safety complex because there's not gonna be a sewer system by the time this is built.
correct, okay.
And
That
it's
was-
it's
that's
easy
right.
enough to put a septic system there, and then eventually when the sewer line hooks up, just connect to it.
Mhm.
It is a planning consideration to be able to
Sure.
bypass the leach field and go to the sewer.
Mhm.
But it's already been, as far as feasibility, it's based on on-site septic, and that's the horse we gotta ride.
Actually, that just happened with the new dance studio at the Harley Shop. They disconnected their septic system and hooked to the sewer. That was part of the conditions that were met through Board of Health, so they could do that.
Okay, so moving on to task 7.
So, I have started the paragraph, or the narrative rather, but I have not completed it.
Okay, so in reviewing the final report, the HKT did a summary of what we have done. My question is that sufficient?
They have a chart, they actually have our chart in there.
In the appendix,
Yes,
in the
yes.
appendices, yes, so they have that, but then there's a written paragraph about what we have done.
Mhm.
Does the committee feel that that is sufficient, or does the chief need to keep working on a more comprehensive narrative? Charlie?
Go ahead, Charlie.
I think it's sufficient because what's been going on is we've been working on it for like 2 years. We've gotten to this point, and I think now it's becoming more important to take and do this reduction and get the paperwork out to the community to get a vote that keep the process going. I think what was done is fine, but I don't think we need to spend any more time on it.
Cindy?
Well, I was going to modify that a little bit and say it is a great paragraph that they put in, which was summarizing it, but I don't think it speaks from our committee. I think it speaks from HKT. So I was going to suggest that the chief continue whatever draft you're
Yeah.
doing and sort of say why we did it, you know, as a
Sure,
committee.
I'll have a
That would be
draft,
it.
for the next meeting, I'll have a draft for
But
everyone.
not a
And we can
long
make a decision.
report, just to,
Yep.
Yeah, I think we need closure on this and move on.
yeah, I don't think it has to be terribly long. That's my thought.
Okay. as long as you have time and
Yes.
willingness. Thank you, Chief. Briefly, let's go over outreach, but let's start off with the brochure mailing. I thought we were going to have that
So,
in our mailbox.
it was actually going to probably be in people's mailboxes by the end of the week. What had happened was the database that was provided to Valley Marketing didn't have the list of the households. It had the list of everybody in town. So Lucy's now working on just addresses, that's it. So instead of, it was the list that was compiled was not the list we needed. So she's working on that now, but that I expect it to be out in the mail by next week.
Okay, so it's merely a matter of getting the right
That's it.
information
Mhm.
to.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
I thought it was going to be out. I got a call from John today, actually saying, "Hey, this list is not going to work. I need one that has specific addresses, not the every resident in town."
Sure,
So
of course.
instead of it going out to 2,700 people like it should, households like it should, they're already at like 50.
Okay, okay.
5,600
All right.
people.
So
So
just-
that's too much.
Everyone gets a person.
Yeah.
Does
So-
Lucy know this yet?
She does. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
She's working on it.
Okay. Do we need to address further outreach at this point? I guess we could, we were at Celebrate Southampton. Do you want to give a little description of that? That's the only thing we've done.
We set up a booth at Celebrate Southampton. We handed out a few pamphlets, there wasn't too many. There wasn't many people that came and made inquiries, to be quite candid with you.
But we have those good handouts
Yes.
now, and we should find out another use for them.
Right.
I don't know, does the committee feel that rather than dwelling on more outreach at this time while we're moving forward with getting a new plan with HKT, that we should move on to the final report and review that, so that's done within our time frame? And that has to go, that would have to be included in other business that can't wait. I'm sorry, I didn't list it on the agenda.
The only question about outreach is, should we be scheduling a public forum, even like anticipating, should we get it on the calendar? Because we talked about having one more or more than one more.
To present
forum.
what would
To
be?
present the final feasibility study and as a way to bring in the public, allow them to ask questions. The give and take between the committee, or I don't know if HKT would be coming, that's not part of the ongoing contract. So unless we've changed our mind, I thought we were gonna do at least one more public forum.
We are, but have we got enough information to even schedule it? Would it be better to do it next meeting when Scott has more information from HKT? We could set a random date,
That's all I
a
was
date,
wondering, if we
yeah.
wanted to do that. But not, we can wait till the next meeting. That's fine.
Chris is exiting the meeting, just so everyone knows.
Oh,
Okay.
take care, Chris.
Related to schedule and interacting with the larger community, I'd like you to anticipate interacting with the land use planner, whether as a community of the whole, or with a couple of you who know the physical planning issues, or motivated to work on physical planning issues.
Are you suggesting?
One of the things that comes to mind is we rethink the whole program and where could we possibly save money. I know you considered second story, but the assumption was flat site. If a corner of the site allowed for some kind of split level, do you achieve any efficiencies? Or are you adding the complexity of grade difference?
And elevators and staircases, which adds to the footprint size. That's
I thought they
stated
used
in.
poles.
That's
And they
stated,
climb them too.
that's
Right.
stated in their feasibility study, that,
Talk to me about polls after.
All right.
Yeah, that's quite an expense.
I'm trying.
It's
I've
quite
got
an
my thinking
expense.
hat on.
So we're gonna hold on scheduling anything for now. Wait.
I would say let us have that as an aim for the next meeting.
Okay.
I'll write that into the agenda to,
Yeah, so if not grade, still there's a question of who do you want your neighbors to be?
Stephen, are you suggesting that this committee meet with the land use planner?
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
that would be inviting the land use planner to one of our meetings.
I would ask you to set aside that kind of time. And
Well, we can-
organize it as you see fit, whether you ask everyone to come or you designate some people, but a good solid hour to give your input. How did you come up with 3.5 acres or 5 acres? How did you go from an initial concept to we're willing to buy commercial frontage? What does it look like if you disregard zoning? Those are the kinds of questions the land planner will assist in exploring. And you guys know your preferences, and we've had lots of conversation about that. And that really needs to be shared forward into the process.
Well, I think it would be a very fine idea to have them at one of our meetings, but that we'll have to know when it's possible.
If you
Since
have a predictable schedule, we would build that in. You and the
But you
senior
haven't
center-
even hired anyone yet.
That's correct, but if you're meeting once a month, we'll probably have someone on contract in about a month, less than 2 months back. And we want to get on the right foot right out of the gate. You are absolutely the primary committee.
All right, so we'll leave it that, Scott, would you kindly notify me when someone has been contracted? And if it's not, if we have a scheduled meeting and it's not on the agenda, then I will add it, because I can add that to it right up to the day before the meeting.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Coming attractions.
Before we move on to the HKT's final report, is there any other business that can't wait till the next meeting? Okay, hearing none, let's go on to the final report. Did people read it?
Mm-hmm. Flags.
I'm not a good editor, especially when I don't have text in front of me or an invite.
Thank you,
Good
Stephen.
luck, you're welcome.
I went to look at it today and I think it timed out.
Yes, it does time out. You had to have downloaded it. I think Amy increased it to a week. She only had, when she first sent it out, it was just 3 days, I think, so I had to request it again. And can that be put up on the screen?
This is it.
I had a few comments. Cindy, you probably do too. Did you have some
Yeah.
edits? We'll go sequentially, not page by page, but we'll go
We'll be here
down.
until tomorrow morning.
No, well, I didn't mean every single page, but what I meant, for instance, I have a comment for page 8.
Mhm.
And so I just, I think we should go sequentially according to what comments
Sure.
members have to make. So
For paging purposes, it's only paged up to like 25 or so.
33.
Then, oh, 33.
And then all
Thank
the
you. And then the
appendices.
appendices.
And we're not going, I did not read the appendices because that's another 400 pages. I
We've
just
seen them
read
all,
the
yeah.
body of the
I went through
report.
some of them. For instance, the site work by TCI, they budgeted skylights.
They budgeted what?
Skylights.
Oh, skylights.
You know, so there's things in there that I was like, skylights, why would we need skylights?
Light.
I realized that.
Well, I was not being facetious, but they were probably for the interior offices, which otherwise would have no light.
Okay, all right.
I don't think
That
they.
makes sense.
Yeah, I think it is to offer interior space some natural lighting.
It just concerns me, it's a flat roof with just pooling, but, yeah, I mean, again, I'm not an architect, but I just saw certain things that I was kind of, piqued my interest. But that was one of them, but that makes sense.
Again, that's, well, that can be addressed with the architect,
Mhm.
right? How to provide well-lit spaces on the interior. So,
Did you want to start with page 8?
no, 6.
6, good.
Well, I was going to make a comment on pages 6, 8, and 15. They refer to the total acreage of the College Highway parcel as being 41.5 acres. And then on page 11, they once refer to it as a 52-acre site. I think it needs to be consistent. So that, I believe, needs to, and 52 acres is the accurate acreage, correct?
The question, isn't this all gonna be kind of dated though, once we get to the updated
Yeah.
environmental?
Well, report.
We're gonna know we're gonna have a 5-acre lot. You know, because things are gonna be different by the time we're really ready to.
The entire parcel will never change size, though.
No, but it's irrelevant really to the
Okay.
product. No, I'm just saying in general, a lot of things will change between now and when. This won't be the final report.
It is the final report, yes it is. This is the final report that they're trying to finish up for us.
But that report is not going to reflect the changes that have
Right,
been
you're not-
requested. So
You're
that
changing the
doesn't
building.
It doesn't make it a final report in my mind, because
Well, right, but do you not think, it doesn't matter to you that 5 times the entire acre parcel, it's an easy thing to change? I
no,
don't
I
care.
have no problem with where you're going with this. I'm just saying that it's titled wrong.
Wouldn't it be better to leave it in draft form until we know what changes are being made? And
Well, it's not, this is called the final report that they're requesting comments on.
So Scott, when you were giving us the numbers a few minutes ago for the additional work that you're going to be negotiating with them,
So it's 5,000 for the modification.
yes, so
to the
there
final
will be
report.
modifications to the report.
And for example, if we don't go forward with the $55,000, they would just present this as a final report.
Of course.
So,
But-
So you're saying not to make any adjustments to what information they've already passed on?
no, I think we can close out this part, and then the modifications will be separate.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I
But-
thought,
But do we
that-
want a formal report for something we're not gonna do? I mean, how would we
Yeah,
do that?
that'd be my concern also. I think naming it the final report, it's not the final report. I mean,
I didn't name it that, Charlie, they did.
what I'm saying is they need to change the title of it.
It is confusing, because if this is published, I know I had questions, and those are the questions I wrote down. This isn't up to date. It's information, it's valuable, but it isn't current. That was my feeling about the report.
Maybe just rename it feasibility study number 1.
Or
Yeah,
1A and
or
1B,
something
or
like
you
that.
said something like that.
That's the way I do it, but I wouldn't say final, because final is final.
Is it even important to have a report? I mean, we spent money, so maybe we need a report to prove that we.
We definitely need a report. We need a report for the history of all the work that's gone into this. It's critical. And,
I think
you
we're
know, in another
specific to that.
50 or 80 years when we're doing it all, we won't be here, but doing it all over, barely be here, but.
No, this 50 to 80 years from now.
But, you know, I just think that this is confusing. I nearly brought my husband in to read this and say, how do you feel about this? Because it's confusing. Because it, like, all those toilets that they had in there, which you eliminated some of them, and a bunch of stuff that I even wrote down, the caveat is, this is not the final design, and we would have to say this.
They say it. They say this is not the final design. Within the body of their feasibility study,
But they
that's very.
titled it wrong.
Oh, I'm not arguing that.
The
That's,
semi-final.
that's how they sent it off in their email.
And that's how it did start, in all fairness to them, but we're not closing that door, we're moving forward and modifying this, so. I agree with Cindy, we need we need a report to document what we've done, no argument there. Chris, I agree with you that they need to correct and wordsmith the fact that they have certain things that are inaccurate for the whole. I agree with that too. But I also feel titling it final misrepresents.
That's, okay, that is fine. I agree, I'm fine with that, but I have read this twice. And if we don't make the corrections that I have picked up on the second reading, on the first and the second reading, I don't want to have to take time off from work again to read this part through again. Do you get it? I mean, do you understand that what is an error could be corrected now with the understanding that there's a whole other phase that is going to now take place. But I think they're going to argue that this is the feasibility study that they have completed according to the original contract. And that what is done as Part B is separate. Can you weigh in on that, Scott? I don't know. But truly, I don't want to have to go through this. I took 2 hours off from work today to read through this, and I can't keep doing that.
I think it's important just to make sure that whatever we call it, that, you know, the committee has decided not to pursue that one. I think that's the end goal, and that we're going to be looking at alternatives to it. So, you know, the committee hasn't adopted that feasibility study. Whether or not we want to call it proposal number 1, proposal number 2, I think that's
Yeah, phase one.
phase 1, that they didn't, you know, the committee did not accept it, so we're moving on to phase 2. Or, I mean, this is under the assumption that we are going to move forward with HKT, which I think we all are.
Yeah, I think that's gonna happen. I also have a lot of confidence in Chris, and I think that what you found in the report that's wrong, as chair, you should go back to them and say, these are errors in this. But I think the other part this committee needs to do is go back to them and say, it's just gotta be retitled. I don't have a grasp of what to call it, but it can't say final report.
Okay. So just, the first one they sent out was called a draft.
Right.
So draft number 2.
Either
Somehow.
that or final report of phase one, and what we're proposing with the 55 grand,
Phase
phase two.
two. That's
Just
it.
something to tell the general population when they read this, that this wasn't the closure of it.
Right. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Christina, they're gonna use, for instance, this part right here, right? They're gonna probably use the same methodology in their final report with potential erroneous information in there.
Yeah.
So you're looking to identify this erroneous information so we don't have to do that again.
That's, yeah, because I'm not willing to sit down again and read.
I mean, I can certainly, as we go through this, I can highlight everything, save it as a separate document, so we have it all highlighted.
Okay, let's let Christina,
Can
because
I just ask one more thing? If I were the reader, I'd want to see a paragraph, a new paragraph right at the top that says, this is not, we did not agree to go forward with this proposal, but this is where we were at the end of phase one, something like that.
Yeah, something.
Just so the reader will know that they're not reading this long document for something that didn't even happen.
Scott, that would be up to you, I think, to negotiate that with them, or just clarify. See, I would ask their opinion, I think, on how they would, what, I don't know, how it will be refashioned with the additional contract.
That I'm not sure of.
No, they will have to say.
Yeah. I'm not sure if they'll do it as an appendix or,
Right,
you know.
right, we don't know.
But you could take what you've discovered, share that with them, so that they're aware that these things are in error.
Well, I can, but I think the bigger question here is what we're titling it. Which I wasn't questioning. I mean, I know, they know, I know that it's not the final report. They're calling, that was just how they sent it out. So, but Scott is now going to be renegotiating. As far as they know, we haven't committed to moving forward with phase 2 of the feasibility study. So Scott, once that's confirmed, then they will know that they will be modifying what they have thus far done.
I have another meeting I have to go
Okay, thank you for attending.
to. Good to see everybody. Except you, Rich.
Okay.
Those are grief and discomfort in my life.
I think if you have found things that need to be questioned, and they do, I think we should let you tell us what they are so that we can either agree that they need to be questioned or we can perhaps answer them.
It won't take me long, there
Let's
weren't
do it.
that many
You went
things.
through a lot of work, I read it too, let's go.
Okay, so do we agree that there should be consistency in the
Yes.
full acreage?
But the thing is, there's more than one lot. There's the same map, but there's 2 lots. So I think what they're doing is they're also taking, there's lot 144 and there's lot 141.
Is there, so is, one of them is 41 acres, is that correct?
I believe so. The larger one is 41 acres. And the
So maybe, so they just don't clarify, they have shifted,
Yes,
but they are accurate in the 41 acres,
I believe so. I
but they
didn't
are
rewrite
also
assessor's
accurate
map,
with
but
the 52 acres, but it's confusing in the report.
That is correct. So if anything, they should,
Address it.
in the beginning, say something like this is made up of 2 lots on assessor's map. I think it's 39. I think that's the assessor's map. And I'm sorry, I don't have those right in front of me myself. I thought I made notes on that, but I didn't. I made them on something else. I'll tell you now.
Okay.
But that does need to be corrected.
Thank you, Cindy. That clarifies that actually their 41.5 is the acreage for one of the parcels, but we're buying 2. So that if they just clarify it, so it doesn't confuse me or another lay reader.
Yep.
So
it's map 19, parcels 141 and 144. Don't have the
19.
exact acreage, but that's the map. Map 19, parcels 141, 144.
I gotta write that down.
Parcels what?
141 and 144. For what's now been designated 117 to 125 College Highway.
We do have to figure out a better name for that too, moving forward.
For the,
I used
yeah,
to
we
get
do.
149 and 144.
Well,
No, 141 and 144.
yeah.
Okay. So I'll just try to get them to clarify that. I'll wait for Chief to.
Okay.
On page 8, second to the last paragraph. Have you got that up? Oh. There, it says after the town's negotiations were complete. Chief, can you read that full sentence?
I'm looking for it. You said the second to last paragraph?
Yeah.
After the town's negotiations were complete, HKT was then provided with a revised site which included the original 4.2 acres and an additional 1.14 acre parcel located on College Highway. This additional site would be developed at the entry driveway for all vehicles entering the site directly from College Highway.
Okay, my comment there is that the negotiations were nowhere near complete when we had revised the acreage and asked them to move forward. The negotiations weren't complete until Scott came on, or well after Scott came on, because he finalized, and maybe we even don't consider them done yet, or until the closing.
Not until it's recorded.
Right. So that's just an inaccurate statement that I didn't like, and my suggestion was going to be, as the town's negotiations progressed, we changed it to the 1 point.
I like that better, yeah.
Yeah, that was just misleading.
Good.
Mark, did you have a chance to reread any of it? No. Okay. I was going to ask you whether the paragraph on the HVAC systems was okay. On page 9, I presume it is, but I wanted your input. Then my question was whether their paragraph about task 7 was sufficient, and we've clarified that. And then the next is that on page 13, please, Chief. The only square footage figure that they offer is the 29,968. And on page 14, they break that down.
So what are you?
I am looking at the last sentence on page 13.
Scroll down a little more.
Okay, you have to.
There you go.
And if you scroll down a little bit more, you'll get the top of page 14. Okay, so that's where they break it down. There's no mention here of eliminating the carports and the shooting range to reduce it to the final 26 something, which I found very misleading.
Oh, it was 26,161.
Correct. The only time that that is referenced is on page 30. I don't want to get ahead of the chief.
I'm not worried about spelling right now. Okay. Page 30 now?
Well, I was just referring still to the published 29, the square footage at that 30,000, and we don't get any reduction. It doesn't reference any
Yep.
reduction until page 30 under hard costs. And it is only described in dollar values, the savings in dollar values, and not in square footage on page 30, and that's listed under hard costs. I don't think that is, I think it needs to be referenced up where, well, somewhere else. I think that rather than just as a listing under hard costs, yeah, if you take us down there, that's a long distance. That's many pages between page 13 and page 30. So here, yeah, so they've got hard cost for a 26,000 square foot building, and the only explanation for that is just below it. And there's no reference to the reduced square footage or how that came to be. And I just didn't like that, the way that was spaced, and the fact that it wasn't mentioned much earlier when, like on page 14, that had further been, or that had been adjusted, that the carports and the struding range had been eliminated.
While you're looking, can I make a
Please.
point on page 29 before we
Please.
flip around? Just one little, the very, so, okay, it's under hard costs. This is really more of a sort of grammatical thing. There's two sentences that really are, one of them's redundant. So TCI Torta Consulting, they mentioned including hard cost figures to design and pricing contingency added to cover the cost. Without a more defined design. Typically, this contingency is reduced as a project progresses. And then the next sentence says pretty much the same thing. 10% contingency is typical as the feasibility study phase and drops as the project's further developed. So I would say remove the one that says typically, because it's the same thing. It's going to reduce as the project proceeds. It's just a contingency you come up with to begin with at 10%. Don't you think they're kind of redundant statements, the two? The one beginning to typically, and then the next one saying the 10% contingency is typical of blah, blah, blah. So just take out the middle.
I think that is correct.
The Department of Redundancy Department.
So you're looking at for the last sentence in that to be removed?
I was going to say the middle one, the one that begins
All
typically. Because the other one, the 10%, is a little more specific and
All right.
clear. You see? I'm chair of that department.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's my only sort of comment about the body of the works. You've got more.
Well, as far as on the subject of redundancy, they do repeat, and I didn't know whether we wanted to get into this kind of editing, but they repeat the paragraph about the building options for 125 College Highway on pages 26 and 27.
I think I saw that one.
And that starting off with two L-shaped parcels. It's the same paragraph essentially that they have in their executive summary, and maybe that's just part of.
I think that's common, that the
Yeah,
executive
that's what I
summary
was
just
saying.
kind of grabs
Yes,
what
certain
they consider
paragraphs. Yeah, but I
critical
didn't need
points.
to read it twice. But you're right. I mean, your editing is redundancy that is
One sentence.
sequential.
Yeah.
This is just okay. It's not that great to have to reread
Agreed.
information in a report, but we'll let that go. And
Some people are only going to go to the executive summary. That's all they're going to read. They're not going to read every word.
right,
like-
and it should summarize what's in the rest
Yeah.
of the report. I'm not really getting my note here, so I may just pass on over this. Just give me my. I'm going to pass over that so I don't waste your time. Go ahead, Cindy.
No, that's it.
Thank you.
The rest of mine is all about knowing what we know today, that some of these things are not correct, you know. We heard what the subcommittee did to talk about reducing room sizes, room needs, particular rooms, and I like Reg's idea that there should be a preamble to the entire report of some kind that says this was created, and then the committee worked hard to think of ways to make it more cost-effective, more amenable to the people in the town, and whatever words you want to use to make this work. I mean, this is 25 million compared to 39. That's like a home run for me in terms of the kinds of comments I've been getting from residents.
So I would still maintain that, although I can pass these few adjustments on, that it's up to Scott to renegotiate a contract, or to negotiate a new contract with HKT, and then address how it will impact the report. Are we in agreement? Is the committee in agreement with that?
Along those lines, can I ask if the committee thinks it's a good idea to come up with sort of a subjective report from the committee? Why we did what we did. We heard time and time again Chief Illingworth saying, you know, we have to make this so cost effective that it can be sold. Those were my words, not your words. I'm representing seniors on this committee. I want it to be known that I'm concerned that we have something that allows our professionals to be responsive, to be well-trained, to feel supported, to be able to serve the community in a timely and very professional way, and not just filling an office space somewhere, something like that. Those are just off the top of my head, but I just wonder if that is a possibility that we get this somewhere in. It wouldn't be HKT's work, it would be just the final writing of what's published, because this will stand for many decades. It'll be looked back on at some future point.
Well, is that something that would be presented at a public forum?
Yeah.
And then put in paper, you know?
Yeah, it may
as
be an
a-
appendix to this, yes. Something like that. So those are just my,
It's a reasonable thing.
do you think so? Even if we each wanted to put something in it voluntarily, not if
I
you
don't know, I
didn't.
think I'd take the opposite approach, that we're a committee and we're kind of coming up with ideas together, consensus, rather than say, well, I thought this, but do you want to go that way?
Yeah, that's probably a good point, yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
No, just some sort of narrative of how we started and
Yeah.
what we worked through collectively.
Of course, we're a slightly different committee than we were to begin with. There's people have come on and replaced, and, you know, we don't have Sarah, who started with us as a chair, and she was wonderful, and, you know, things like that. But nonetheless, not that you're not wonderful, Christina, you're wonderful.
No, well, I'm just thinking that how many of us are from the original committee. I think it's just the chief and me and
Me.
Charlie
Me.
and you, yeah,
And Mark came on later, and you two came on later, and you came on later.
and Mark Darnold and John.
Mark
was
Donald
a-
and John were part of the original. Really so, yeah. And Chris was not,
No.
Rainey was here, so it's like 50% of us. But anyway, just not for today, just throwing that out as.
No, I think it's
So we have a
probably-
really complete report, and
Boy, I have to think back hard. It's been like 2.5 or almost 3 years, hasn't it? I think that is a worthy goal, and we should work on that, but that sounds like a significant undertaking. Covers a lot of time and a lot of steps.
well, we don't want it to be too detailed. We just-
No, I know. I think it's a matter of reviewing minutes. Well, I do, to jog my, if I were to do it, I'd have to jog my memory to remember what we did and when, how things transpired when new people came on. But anyway, it's,
Something to think about.
yeah. All right, any other business? then I asked that before we went into this. So shall we please schedule the next meeting? I think for the next meeting, we need something definitive from HKT.
So the 14th is a holiday, which is a Monday. 21st, would you have been able to negotiate with HKT by the 21st of October?
Hope so.
Conservation Commission meets at 6 p.m. that night, but I'm not sure that conflicts with us. They meet by Zoom. 4:30 on the 21st, maybe?
Is that good with those present?
Works for me.
Might just be a few minutes late, but
Excuse me. October 21st, 4:30 here.
All right, members, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I move to adjourn.
Oh, yes, it was,
6,
Aye.
7.
we have to do, oh no, with Chris
Chris is
off, do
gone.
we still have to do roll call, Chief? Scott?
I would.
Okay, so, but I need a second before we can.
We did, we got Barry.
Oh, Barry,
Oh,
oh,
you, I'm sorry.
it was
Reggie.
Reggie.
Mary made the
Second.
motion, what, to leave?
No, she made the motion. Were you the second?
No, you were the next person who talked, so you.
I just voted aye. I didn't hear a second.
You have to say Cyril, aye. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Chief, please start. All in favor?
We're not.
Ellsworth, aye.
Aye.
Palmer, aye.
Searle, aye.
Green eye.
Solely aye.
That's an aye.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.